Hello, this is Jed Brewer with Study Groups and the Below the Line Club. I really appreciate everybody being on the call today as we talk about COVID-19 and how the world is changing very rapidly from the way we usually go about life and about business. I know I'm in Washington State, the far northwest corner of the U.S., and we've been a little bit of ground zero in the U.S. anyway, and our state governor just last night issued a decree. They have a 13-step pandemic plan that they work through, and as you get farther down the plan, things get more restrictive, and we're at step 11 now of 13 for Washington State, where we've closed all schools, and we've closed restaurants and bars, limited gatherings to 50 or less, and really discouraged any gatherings of 10 or more. So we're sort of all in quarantine out here, but convenience stores, grocery stores are still open. And I think as the pandemic picks up in other parts of the U.S., we're going to see more and more movement because everybody has that same 13-step plan that they're moving through. So unusual times, to say the least. I know in Italy, the whole country is on lockdown. I think the next step for the state of Washington is to lock down travel in and out of the state, and then even go into more clusters of cities as well, where they feel that the virus is spreading quickly. So interesting times, and I know we're all trying to scramble and figure out for our businesses how things are changing. And I'm really pleased that in light of this busy time, we have several individuals who've been graciously giving of their time to tell us how they're responding. Our panelists on the call today are 6 individuals. You just think from a high-level perspective, we have Brad Douglas, who's CEO of Douglas Distributing in Sherman, Texas. Douglas Distributing is a full-line petroleum marketer. They operate about 15 convenience stores, have a dealer business, transportation business, propane and lubricants, among other lines of business. Also with Brad is Alyssa Fawks, who's the safety director of Douglas Distributing. Pleased to have Steve Hall, COO of Clipper Petroleum. They're in Georgia, a retailer with 25 stores roughly, also have a dealer business and transportation business. And Albie Ferguson is the HR director, joining Steve at Clipper Petroleum. Also pleased to have Ann Pitts, who's the owner of the Pitts Group, really specializes in credit and collections. And then Eric Bolduc, who's the VP at Holmes Murphy. He lives in Scottsdale, Arizona, to talk briefly at the end about business continuity insurance and what, if any, options may be out there. So to the panelists, thank you for your time being involved. What I'd like to do for the audience is I have everybody muted. We would like to be as responsive to questions as we can be. We've got a good number of people that are on this call, so we'll do our best, but we may not get everybody's question answered on the call. But if you do have one, please type your question into the dialog box in the GoToWebinar framework. I'll be able to read those questions, and we'll do my best as we can to relay them on to our panelists. I chose Brad Douglas and Alyssa Fawks, who will have lead out to be on this call, and they were kind to agree to, mainly because Douglas Distributing had put together, after the SARS pandemic of about 10 years ago, a pandemic plan, and it was very useful to have as this event with the COVID-19 coronavirus is rolling out. So Brad and Alyssa, I'd just open it to you guys. Share a little bit about why you put the plan together and what are some of the key takeaways you've had with this plan as you've been applying it today.
You bet. Howdy and welcome from the great state of Texas. My name is Brad Douglas, CEO of Douglas Distributing. We're a 3-generation petroleum marketer and retailer, and we operate 24 stores, serve about 180 dealers. We deliver commercial and residential propane, commercial fuels, Exxon motor lubricants, and we're a petroleum common carrier in North Texas and Southern Oklahoma with about 450 team members. My talk today is going to be centered around our response to the pandemic. We put together this plan originally for SARS, and it was actually at the ExxonMobil helped us put this plan together because they believed that a pandemic was the only thing that could take down at that time, the world's largest corporation. So they were fearful of it and put together a plan. And so you are seeing, the shell of it, and then all the things that both Beth and Alyssa have done in the meantime. So our overall plans about a crisis situations, it's designed to strengthen the resiliency of our family business. And, during these difficult times, when our capabilities and strengths are really put to the test. For us, it means making a list of priority sections, that are the most fundamental parts of our business functions. For that, the fundamental are the frontline workers, our drivers, our C-store workers, our techs, and one overlooked one oftentimes is IT. These folks are really the ones that we need to have well and in place. And from there, then we move out to outward kind of concentric circles of where we devote our resources. Now, key is everybody's watching us. Our staff, customers, suppliers, bankers, everybody is looking at our response, and we need to act accordingly. We can't have panic in the office, in the stores. We have to hunker down and weather this storm because ultimately it'll build trust within the company and then across the companies inside and out. In addition to what I call strength and confidence, we need compassion. People are pushed to their limit. They're scared. And when they're scared, it affects their performance. And so we just need to put some grace, put some understanding, put some forgiveness in the message when we're delivering it to our folks. Unfortunately, our people are going to act out or react to all of this. Some will kind of hunker down, some will retreat. Others will in fact act out as they are processing all these new changes. And again, grace and forgiveness would be great at this time. With us, school closings are an absolute critical factor, specifically then the child care around that, and then and the plans that we need to take to accommodate that. We have all of our folks have the capacity to work at home. We had ordered a pallet of laptops when we saw this crisis coming, and we are now deploying those. And our most vulnerable are those with child care needs are being sent home with that equipment. In the end, your staff's going to remember how you treated them during these kind of worst of times. In all fairness, they care about that more than they do the best of times. And so kind of going forward, I'm more of an optimistic. We've had this before in 2007, and that has never let a difficult crisis go to waste. I mean, this is a time that you can make organizational changes, whether it's staffing, or it gives you cover to make the organizational changes going forward that you may not have been able to do in the regular times. So we have kind of specific plans. One is set up a care committee. This will be in charge of handling the request for paid time off exceptions, other aspects of employee and family well-being, such as child care. We also have a business continuity team, and that is they are taking a look, short and long-term strategic plans. They're taking a look at our supply chain disruptions, identifying the weak links, and then putting together strategies to plug those. One thing we just need to be careful about is our sick leave policies. This is not the time to have punitive ones. the financial cost of someone taking off is very small relative to potentially dangerous infections that could wreak havoc on our companies and stores. So for us, it's a business continuity. It's a resilience that we are trying to build, and with that, gosh, I've got some very specific things, and so let me kind of jump into those. What we're trying to do is build what I call corporate shock absorber, and that is our ability to handle this demand destruction and get through it and get to the other side. Fortunately, we're in the downstream petroleum business and not hotels, casinos, or cruise ships, and so that's good. Now, what's different about this is after the 9/11 crisis, it was patriotic to go out and spend. However, the right thing to do now is not to go out, and this is unprecedented. So even if your company is not directly affected, your customers will be. The crisis affects everybody. If your business is highly leveraged, you've got to cut expenses or sell assets. The challenge is selling assets, you can only sell what others are buying. So identify those that are liquid in the market and those that are not. Check your loan covenants, your ratios. Make sure you're in compliance and form a plan to stay in compliance with those. If you have a credit line established, now's the time to tap it. If it's based on accounts receivable numbers, you need to take a look at that. As the price of motor fuel is plunging, your accounts receivable and that value of your inventory and the value of that letter of credit or the size of the letter of credit is going to be directly impacted. Do analysis on overtime and manage it with the, in light of the declining sales. For your, for
Brad,
company
one
policy.
Question, Jed
Sure.
here. Just one question for you as you talked about managing leverage ratios and so forth with banks. Are you anticipating lending? I know the Fed, they've done a lot of work to try to reassure markets. They've cut rates down to zero for short term. They've made the discount window more available to people, done some quantitative easing things. What's your anticipation around banking and lending from banks to small businesses like ours?
Yes, our bank, Citizens Bank, is actually encouraging us to lock up long-term fixed rates. So just now, particularly with the 104 basis reduction we had yesterday, they're saying today, it's a great time to lock in long-term rates.
Yeah, so they're still reasonably ready to lend and love people to lock in. Thanks.
Yeah, we're a corporate level. I'm not sure when it comes to the individual retailers, because so much of those individual retailers, it's all set up on cash flow. As that cash flow is impacted, and their expenses are not, I think they're going to have our dealers are going to have a harder time refinancing today than ever.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciated your thoughts about this care committee that you're establishing and really trying to figure out what those needs of your workers are and how can we, within reason, be generous in this time of hurt for everybody.
You bet. Happy to give you more details, or if we need to move on, that's fine too.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to some of your specific things that you're doing.
Sure. One is not to require a note from the doctors for the employees' absences. That just puts additional stress on the healthcare providers. During 9/11, we closed the gates and posted security to screen the guests. I don't know if that we have to do that now and put temperature monitors out there at the gate. Be vigilant and don't allow our dealers to price gouge on fuel or cleaning supplies. The social media and attorneys generals will eat them alive. Consider having meals brought to your office from locally owned businesses. Just understand that panic buying so far has been confined to grocery stores. Don't be surprised if motor fuel is the next toilet paper. Demand destruction is going to require all of us to build up a cash cushion, and I think we'll hear more about that later. Collect on all the accounts as as soon as possible, even discount for prompt pay, or to build up your cash surplus. Remember, cash is king. Take a look at the average cost of your motor fuels inventories. Our retail prices are going down faster than we can turn our inventories, and so it's a significant problem for us. We've got cash acceptors at our pumps, and that way we can close our stores early, or we can close them at night and still take all forms of payment. We received a margin call, which was a surprise for fuel that we bought in June, and so anyway, that was an ugly surprise for us. Let's take a look here. Gosh, here's one we did during 9/11. It was a optional prayer in our conference room once a day for the week after 9/11. Staff morale is critical to ease the worries, increase productivity, and maintain kind of just a sense of well-being. So consider prayer time. Also, our folks are able to share unused paid time off with others that have run out, and this will help during the illness or possible illnesses coming forward. For employees that are actually infected by the virus, consider paying them the 14 days time off. The goodwill and clear concern for the employee health is worth far more than the cost for one individual. Communicate with your cleaning services, schedule additional cleanings, and then gain their commitment to sanitize any location or workers diagnosed with the virus. Get all your spare trucks fixed now while there are parts available. We've already been put on allocation for certain parts, and we might need them to supply the next panic buying. Circulate an updated employee list with everyone's name, their role, email, office, and cell phone. Consider getting a corporate credit card where you put cash, where you put purchases on the card versus sending them a check. Again, just trying to extend that cash flow. Keep in mind that the dealers and small contractors have little cash cushion, very dependent on continuous sales to pay the rent and payroll. Their expenses don't stop. So anyway, I think I've taken up probably more of my time, but I've got an additional list of things that we are implementing. But let me turn it over to Alyssa, and everyone take care, and thank you for your time, and may God bless America.
Thank you, Brad.
Okay.
Yeah, and Alyssa, I pulled up your pandemic response plan here, and I look forward to you diving more into it.
Perfect. Thank you for doing that. So, yes, my name is Alyssa Fawks. I also work with Brad down here in lovely Texas. We have a pandemic response plan that is 41 pages long. I know a lot of you are probably thinking, wow, that's a lot. It is, but I wanted to personally try and break down. We're not going to go through every page, and I'm just going to try and make it quick, but just some of the sections that I recommend everybody add into a pandemic response plan. So why have one? Brad had a great recommendation and idea on why to have it, because ExxonMobil really says that it's a good thing, it's a big thing to rely on. So something for me and my background, I'm a safety person, safety professional. I have my degree in safety. I eat, sleep, breathe, bleed safety, and with that, proactivity. So a pandemic response is first and foremost your proactive plan. So with that, I'm just going to break down a few sections. First, as you see on the page, this is kind of just our cover page, but it does cover the objectives. So what's the point here? It's to protect the health and safety of employees and their families, maintain operations critical to society, minimize business disruption and financial impact, maintain critical customer relationships, and then maintain company reputation. So again, moving with the proactive thought, you want to have this plan written and ready to implement, because once you need it to implement, it's not a good time to start trying to throw one together. So I highly recommend everybody write a few pointers down and get this ready and train your employees or your executive team first on what to implement. So the first things that we highlighted were the pandemic phases. So the World Health Organization has 6 personal phases, going through no disease, then moving to sick birds and animals, then to bird animal to human transmission, which we know that's most likely where the coronavirus COVID-19 came from, moving the human to human transmission, and then throughout the country. And now we're full on in they declared a pandemic. So with WHO, they've already declared the pandemic. For Douglas, we also kind of have a company phase plan that we work through. It's only 4 phases. So it hits on preparation phase, then to hot standby phase, moving to critical operation phase, and then selective shutdown phase. As you will see on the screen, thank you, Jed, for pulling that up. So right now we are kind of sitting there at the preparation and hot standby phase. What does that mean? Basically that we are not 100%, it's not in the area right now, but we are preparing for it and we're standing by in order to implement the next phase, the critical operation and selective shutdown phase. This is going to be kind of declared by what's going on locally, what's going on in our facility, whether there are people here that have or come down with flu or COVID-19. We kind of work through that as we go rather than a full-on panic, not having a plan of action. So
Liz, let me just interrupt you for a second. So this plan, it should have been emailed out to everybody prior. Douglas Distributing was very kind to share it. As Alyssa said, she's kind of highlighting it here, but isn't going to go into detail of everything. But you're welcome to pull the plan up from your email and browse through it as she's talking here. There were some other documents that were also sent as well. But thank you, Alyssa. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you. So just highlighting on a couple more things that we want to put in there. Communication is key, 100%. Me and Brad have been tracking the coronavirus for months now and just staying calm and watching what's happening around us, and then communicating back and forth, and as well to our community within our business. So sending out emails and letting everybody know that we do have a plan, we are watching it, we're taking care of everything and all of you. We've stressed the importance of staying home if you are sick. A lot of people sometimes think that they feel confident enough, if I get this COVID-19, I'm within the boundaries of it shouldn't affect me much, but to get them to understand it might not affect you as bad and you might get through it, but who in our organization doesn't have that strong of an immune system? And then employees also might fear that they can't afford to not come into work, where, like Brad said, take care of your people. And it's definitely more important to make sure that they don't worry about coming in and they stay home until they get better. Because if they do come in, think about all the people that they might infect, and then your organization might really be in trouble. So continuing that communication chain, we personally have a call tree that we keep updated. I updated it just a couple weeks ago myself, and it touches all of the execs and higher ups in the company, the supervisors, and they know exactly who they need to call down to the very bottom line person. So make sure that you do have that so that you can keep communication strong within the company. And then working from home is a great solution to social distancing and isolation. We are, I know our nation is in a state of trying to limit and be proactive, as I was talking about, and not spreading the disease So if they are needing to stay home, like Brad said, with kids, or if you have portions of your organization that can do that and can function from home, by all means, be proactive about it. Let's see, the next section or few pages, I'm just going to kind of jump through so you don't have to scroll through the whole thing, Jed, but we go through symptoms. Right now is a really bad time, especially in Texas, for us to be having a pandemic like this, because allergy season is setting in strong. So we do, in our pandemic response plan, we do have symptoms between influenza and common cold. As of this morning, one of our employees sent in a symptom chart that goes through the allergies, common cold, flu, and then COVID-19, which I can absolutely share with Jed to send out as well. But it just kind of goes symptom by symptom so that you can try and figure out, hey, do I show symptoms? Yes, that's it. Do I show symptoms of what might be COVID-19, or am I looking at maybe just allergies or the common cold? So that's a good thing to post or even email out to your company so they know the symptoms of everything. Another thing we have is a personal symptom and temperature monitoring sheet, just so that employees can keep track of what is going on. Maybe they need to give this to a medical professional. We have a influenza self-care guideline. We highlight on flu kits, just being prepared around the office in case somebody starts showing symptoms at work. Having thermometers that aren't orally read, but they have the temple reading thermometers now, so that we aren't spreading those germs and everybody's using the same thermometer and wiping it off. Just touch the temple and you're good to go. We know face masks are one of the items that are very scarce right now, so we urge everybody to only purchase those if you are already sick. Only wear those if you're already sick, but let's try and save those for our medical professionals and those that might really need them. Another thing, like I talked about, personal hygiene, we're trying to flatten the curve. You can go to npr.org, and they have some articles on flattening the curve, but basically it's just being proactive rather than reactive. Notify employees once there is an outbreak is another thing that we need to touch on. We have to make sure that we're staying confidential, so we're not using names and telling people, hey, so-and-so over here in HR did come down with the virus, so everybody look out, but notify your employees when there is an outbreak. Just keep confidentiality, not listing names. We have another section based strictly on flu, symptoms, cleaning, exposure control, and then even home prep. So like Brad said, I'm not sure how it is nationwide, but here in the South, everybody's panicking and buying all of the toilet paper. And so it's just a frenzy. Once stores start running out, then everybody goes crazy and starts panic buying along with the face mask. So buy what you need. Make sure you are prepared at home for anything, because there are people now that are running out of toilet paper and there's none in sight, not even on eBay or Amazon unless you want to pay $100. But so make sure that you are preparing for that. And then we have another section that I added in strictly on COVID-19. The procedures are going to be pretty much the same as the flu, as far as hygiene and tracking and making sure everyone's prepared, washing their hands, everything like that. And then the very last section is just posters that you can post in your businesses, around C-stores, restaurants. There's even one for tips on that. So it covers kind of the who, what, when, where, why, and how. It answers all the questions for employees that, like I said, might be scared or panicking. So to be there for your organization and let them know we care, we've got this under control, we're taking care of you. Here's everything you might need to know. And that's what our pandemic plan is really reaching out on.
Well, thank you, Alyssa. This is a lot of detail in here, and thank you for making this available to everybody. A couple questions I have. As you work through your plan, truck drivers are a big asset-based employee pool that we all pull from and utilize. What are you doing in specifics as it relates to your truck drivers and interaction with, say, your office staff, or truck drivers and their interaction with customers? Have you trained them to do anything differently?
We've definitely been sharing a lot on making sure that, I mean, you are going to new sites, you're traveling into Dallas, where there are quite a few cases this far. So to not be sharing pins, washing hands normally, making sure that you're carrying hand sanitizer. We have hand sanitizer in our dispatch room as you come in.
And I think we're picking up a little feedback here. I don't know if it's one of the panelists, speakers or whatnot, but you may want to check to see if you're on mute. But go ahead, Alyssa.
So it is a lot harder for the truck drivers who are having to transfer or drive around and be around other customers. So we've just really been trying to send out emails and wash your hands, don't touch your face, don't borrow pens, and all those kinds of things. I mean, we've gotten a few emails from customers, which I really like to see, of them saying, hey, please don't enter our facility if you have a temperature or any symptoms. So other facilities, other customers being proactive as well. That's always great. It is nice for definitely customers. We sent out for our C-store side at least a statement. I mean, I'm sure if y'all open your emails, you see a lot of different companies sending out letters and emails to their customers saying, don't worry, we're taking special precautions, we're sanitizing, we're keeping everything safe, we're still a safe company to do business with. So we did that for our C-stores, and that community to reach out and say, we are taking these proactive measures, providing touch-free bathrooms and even fuel pumps and all that kind of stuff far and wide. So to take care of our employees here, and also to reassure the community that we are trying to be proactive and we are a safe business to continue to work with.
And tell us about self-isolation. You said you have a plan in place for people to work from home. Give some insight. How did you decide who was able to do that? How do you get them set up? Do you send an IT person there to make sure they're ready to go? Just give me some insight there of how your systems work.
Absolutely. So we are not 100% in the stage of where we're working from home quite yet, but we have kind of broken down the employees that can work from home, that we have issued laptops, and they are connected to, as long as you have Wi-Fi, you can connect to the VPN, which then allows you into the shared drive and everything. So you can potentially pull up everything that's on your desktop at work onto your laptop at home. So as Brad said, there were a lot of schools that have shut down. I even heard a rumor this morning that they might be shut down for the rest of the school year. We're not sure what's going to happen. So with that, there are parents that are a little more nervous. How am I going to find somebody to watch my child? What do I do next? Where do I go from here? So for us to calm their fears and their frustrations, their anxiety, and offer this option, as long as it's something that they can possibly do their jobs from home, just provide the technology, the laptop, everything like that, so that they can do that and not have to worry.
I know in Washington State, Alyssa, we've shut down schools, I think, through, call it April 27th, give or take a little bit, so 6 to 8 weeks. And then a lot of the daycares are starting to close too. So it's very hard for parents to be able to work. What are you doing to address that situation?
So right now we're just trying to get in the preparation mode of working towards that. Luckily, it's not quite up to that point yet. We haven't had anybody really stressing about what to do next. Luckily, this week and last week are kind of that spring break area, so parents have taken the time off already to be with their kids. People have been really flexible with that, but right now we're just keeping HR communicating out. They sent an email out, I think yesterday, just comforting and saying we are here. If you have concerns, let us know. But it's kind of just going to be like a basis by basis thing. But as long as the employee has the ability to do their job from home, we're making that an option in the future.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. So I think what we'll do now, Alyssa, we'll turn to Ann Pitts and let her share a little bit on credit and collections and things that we need to keep our eyes out for just from a cash management standpoint. And then we'll turn to the Clipper Petroleum folks, and they'll talk more about actual retail store operations and what they're doing at the store level in light of everything that's taking place. And we'll come back with some more general wrap up at the end. But Ann, let me turn the floor over to you, and I'm pulling up your checklist that you have here.
Great.
About protecting your cash in this time.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks, Jed. I appreciate you having me on this really important call. And I'm going to keep my piece short, sweet, and simple. Everyone on the call, your order to cash cycle is very likely to be impacted in the near future because your customers are experiencing an interruption in their cash cycle. You know, some of your good customers are going to be I'm looking at the slides, I'm sorry. Some of your good customers who've always paid on time are going to be slow to pay. Slow payers will likely get worse or maybe just not pay at all. Many of your customers, as I said, have had an interruption in their business, and a lot of their customers have had interruptions in business. So as a result, everyone is going to be closely managing their payables. Your accounts receivable aging is likely to look significantly different in the near future than it looks right now. And we all know that's where your cash, that's where your lifeblood lies. Your cash flow is going to look different. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to give you guys 5 proactive steps that you can take to navigate, hopefully just the next couple of months, lessen surprise problems, and come out on the other end without lingering pain. So Jed has gone to my first slide. Number 1, identify those customer segments that are likely have had interrupted cash flow. Who in your customer base relies on distribution or services that you know for a fact have been greatly slowed or even stopped? This has been a hard stop for some folks. I mean, for heaven's sake, Disneyland closed down. You know, the NBA is on pause. There's just so much that's come down so fast. So I know a lot of you guys use SIC coding to track certain industry segments through your back office software. This will be a good use of that function. Figure out forensically who's getting hit and how does that affect the way you're going to go forward handling these accounts, including the amount of credit that you're willing to extend in the near future. Number 2, because you guys are all forward-thinking study group members, I know you have customer credit limits in place and monitored by your technology. But the question I have is, do these limits still apply in today's very unique environment? I am not suggesting that you take on the task of reviewing and adjusting credit limits on your whole book of business, but take a look at those higher risk guys that you've already put under the microscope and ask yourselves, you know, do we need to adjust these credit limits? So my third point, and this is a really big one, guys, you need to be very, very clear with your staff, inform and train them that this right now is a changing landscape. It is not business as usual. And I'm talking about credit personnel, customer service, dispatchers, sales force, your other warehouse or bulk plant locations that are rightfully so very big on customer service. They need to be clear that product flow might not be as free-flowing as they're used to because there might be some additional levels of approval that are going to be needed. Customer credit limits might have been impacted. Another thing to think about when you think about this is a customer suddenly swoops back in after 3 years of just no orders, disappearing, and they need product quickly, of course. Is this because they've stopped paying their other supplier and they've been cut off? You know, who will end up getting paid? I know this is not a new concept, but I'm suggesting that you will see a lot more of this because of cash constrictions. You will need a higher level of risk management, accountability, and employees that need to be trained to this point, or they're going to mess up.
And I'll just interject, Brad Douglas, who's on the call, that was one of the points that he shared with me in just conversation, is to be careful and leery of unsolicited new business that's out there. Why are they all of a sudden coming to you wanting product?
Exactly. That's a great, I mean, Brad and I are on the same thought. He's an owner. I wonder why he's thinking like that. So absolutely. So if we can go to the next slide, I'll go to number 4 on my points. And that is customers that have always paid on time will be suffering cash flow interruptions. Back to my first slide, they're going to be managing their payables like never before. So my question to you guys, what are you going to be willing to do to keep these customers rolling through this time of stress? This is stuff, same thing that the Douglas folks were talking about. You've got to be proactive in the way you think about this, not reactive. So think ahead. What are you going to do? Are you going to be willing to take credit card payments? That gives customers another 30 days to pay. That's going to come up. Are you going to be willing to take a block of customer receivables, put it in a note with a scheduled payment to retire that debt? Are you going to ask for a personal guarantee where you've never had one before? What about some sort of collateral, which, by the way, really only needs to be something of value to your customer that you can turn into cash? That sort of management needs to be discussed ahead of time before you or your collection staff are on the phone with the customer in stress. Work with your collection staff on what they have as far as authority to negotiate and what needs to be referred up the chain of command. Now, I know this type of workout that I'm talking about is going to hit bottom line profits, but I mean, sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. As Jed, as you've pointed out, we're in a very unique situation right now. So an example of that, I'm from Dallas, and look at what Mark Cuban's recent move was. You know, sure, he's a super rich guy, but rich guys don't like to lose money either. But he is paying even his bottom level employees that would be working the Mavericks games, even though the Mavericks games are on hold. That's the kind of unprecedented move that he felt like he needed to do. Brad alluded to it, you know, lead with compassion. So, you know, I'm not suggesting you just tighten up everything on the AR side with your customers, but figure out how to accommodate and work with them. Because I'm going to tell you for sure, and Brad said this too, Brad kind of hit some of my major points. Working through situations like this with customers when they might be having hard times will build ongoing loyalty like nothing else. Brad said it with your employees also, and that's just the truth. So my number 5 final point is your cash. Make sure your banking situation is in the shape it needs to be and to get you through this period of potentially stressed cash flow. Do you have enough available line of credit? You do not want to call your banker and try to negotiate this when you are in desperate need. Bankers are funny about that. I know, because I used to be one. And so, you know, what about loan renewals? Are you in good shape on that too? That's all part of being proactive versus reactive. So, Jed, I'm going to close. I'm just going to say this is a new environment, most likely temporary. Let's be smart, forward-thinking, dealing with what we have to do today, and at the same time protect the financial health of our companies.
Thank you, Ann. Yeah, appreciate those 5 tips. And
I hope it was helpful.
Steve Hall, Albie Ferguson with Clipper Petroleum. Let's turn to you guys. I know it's been a very fluid situation in Georgia like it is in the rest of the country. Clipper Petroleum has been meeting to try to develop their playbook. Steve told me that they had a 3-hour meeting this morning, and they've been gracious to share some of the takeaways that they're implementing as a result. So with that, Steve, I will turn the floor over to you.
Okay, thank you, Jed. My name is Steve Hall. I'm General Manager at Clipper Petroleum. We're located in Flowery Branch, Georgia. First and foremost, I want to let you know that Jed asked us on Friday to participate in this webinar and share some of our best practices around retail operations and the virus outbreak. I quickly let him know that unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we didn't have any best practices at this time. But hopefully, we can at least begin a dialogue that will help us approach this uncharted area that we're moving into. I know we're in overdrive right now, and I'm sure, like most others, we have many, many more questions than we have answers at this point. With all the uncertainty of this rapidly evolving situation, puts us in a very uncomfortable place and has forced us to seek solutions for issues we never faced before. With that said, I'm also sure that we all share a single objective, which is ensuring the health, safety, and welfare of our employees and customers. Here at Clipper, we are relying on this single objective to drive all of our decisions, the most important of which is to develop strategies that will help us minimize the risk of exposure and protect our employees and customers. As a company, we decided to develop a series of questions to help us decide and prepare how to respond to this questionable situation. We'd like to share some of these questions with you at this time, with hopes that they might also prompt you to take action as well on some of these same issues. As Jed mentioned, a lot of this is a very fluid situation, new territory for us. Most of this revolves around the retail sector, and I appreciate all the other information that's been provided in other areas, very helpful this morning or this afternoon. Albie Ferguson's our Vice President of Human Resources, and she's going to take some time to walk you through some of the questions that we developed, hopefully spur some thought, as well as some decisions and plans that we made just this morning in the meeting that Jed alluded to. So we hope this may be of some benefit to you, and I'll turn it over to Albie to walk you through some of these questions and processes.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you all are in today. Just wanted to note, I actually just came back last week from the Next HR Forum. It did not get canceled. So I was able to attend that conference and glean some good information from there. And as well, with most of you, have been staying on top of the CDC website, OSHA website, and our benefits brokers have been excellent partners. We use Hub International. They've been excellent partners in helping us navigate this process as well. As Steve stated, we wanted to kind of put all the questions on the table that we had, questions that we didn't have answers to, and have that to lead us into hopefully making some decisions to better protect our employees and customers. So hopefully you've got those questions in front of you. We talked about various topics, some of which have already been mentioned today. Keeping stores open versus closing stores, how to properly clean and sanitize if perhaps there is a diagnosis or potential exposure that we're aware of, compensating employees. We touched many different topics in those questions that you have in front of you. And what I'd like to do is take you through some of the decisions that we made this morning. So this is hot off the press and still fluid because as this situation evolves, we might make changes as we deem necessary. So first and foremost, what we've decided to do as a leadership team here at the support center is get on a call every day at 11 a.m. Until further notice, and just make sure that all of us are aware of potentially any new developments, that we're able to talk through anything that might have changed since the last time we spoke. We thought that was very important. We have decided.
Albie, are you doing any isolation of that leadership team?
Well, a little bit later on in this section here, we're going to talk about how we're handling the office staff here. We are moving effective immediately to a reduced workforce, if you will, here at the office. So anyone who can work remotely, we need them to work remotely. There are some individuals that their work requires them to physically be here at the office. And so what we're doing with those folks is implementing like a rotating schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for those individuals who need to be at the office, and then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for the next set of individuals who need to be at the office. So really reducing the head count and ideally reducing the exposure here at the office. And we're also closing the office to any outside visitors. So really only open for essential employees and absolutely essential support staff who need to maybe pick up items or print items or whatever the case may be.
Good. And then one member just asked, they wanted to get a feel for your guys' company of the various divisions that you have between stores and dealers, et cetera.
Yeah, Jed, I'll be glad to provide that. We operate 28 stores. All those stores are in the metro Atlanta area. We have a large wholesale division, which consists of around 250 dealer accounts. We have transportation, we have maintenance support, and so that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of the makeup of our business here in Atlanta.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Albie, appreciate it. I'll let you take it away again.
Sure thing. So we have decided in some locations where we can to reduce hours of operations, predominantly in the evening and overnight hours, and utilize that additional payroll to ramp up our cleaning efforts when we are open for business. We also have implemented 1 8-hour shift at our retail stores to be solely dedicated to cleaning and sanitation, both indoor and at the pump. We've also decided to suspend all proprietary food service programs. So we have grab and go items at our locations, roller grill, et cetera, and we have decided to suspend that until further notice. Also, all of our QSRs are on drive-through only until further notice, and we really want to highly utilize Grubhub and Postmates, which we've already had in play, and really ramp up our social media communication on the use of those programs in those locations.
I'll just add to this, our family has used Instacart, like to get our groceries and so forth for some time, and there's been a huge influx in demand for home delivery that's taking place. What used to be able to get something in an hour, now it's out 2 to 3 days wait time in order to get it. So this is an opportunity for people who can do that.
Absolutely. You know, we certainly want to make sure that our fuel is open at all times in all of our locations. We recognize that might be a challenge in some cases, but that is our goal. If we do have a store to close, we want to make sure that we move all available employees to another nearby store, if applicable. In addition to our normal and enhanced store level cleaning procedures, we've also contracted another cleaning company to come and perform enhanced cleaning once per week until further notice.
And one of the resources I sent to people by email is a 7-minute ready training online video that's making its way around, but just talking about how your employees can clean the stores effectively. So I think enhanced cleaning measures are something that we're all trying to do right now.
Great. And if any of you use Open Sesame as one of your learning providers, they also are providing free courses for their members. So that's something to look into if you have that. So as one of our partners stated here earlier, cleaning supplies is very limited out and about in stores, on Amazon, everywhere. So unfortunately, we've made the decision to pull any cleaning supplies that we have on our retail shelves to pull them for store use, so we can make sure that we keep our store clean and well sanitized. We've asked anyone here at the support center as they're out and about to help us purchase cleaning supplies from other retailers. Most retailers now are limiting the amount of quantity that you can purchase, so we figure if we there's strength in numbers, so if we can all get out there, then we can be able to purchase what we might need. In terms of visiting locations, we've asked our territory managers and retail support staff to visit stores only as absolutely necessary. We just really want to reduce any potential exposure to our team and key personnel. So, the big question on folks' minds is, how do we deal with COVID diagnoses, or even situations where one is quarantined due to potential exposure. And what we've decided is, for our full-time employees that have access to vacation and sick time, that we are requiring them to use that vacation and sick time should they be diagnosed or quarantined due to diagnosis or exposure. And we're also asking if there's a part-time employee, that part-time employee would not have vacation or sick time available to them, we've agreed to compensate them for up to a 40-hour work week with a maximum payout of 80 hours over a 2-week period of time. And we're just assessing that as time goes on. It might change, but as of this time, we want to make sure that folks aren't concerned about getting paid if they happen to be quarantined pending results of a COVID diagnosis, or if they are quarantined due to being diagnosed or exposed. We have suspended not only visitors to the office until further notice, but any meetings, any group meetings at the office for a minimum of 2 weeks, and we'll just continue to reassess that as time goes on. As it relates to our maintenance technicians, we are asking them to wear gloves while they're working, to just take every precaution to keep themselves safe, to keep their distance and avoid contact where possible. We are reducing the amount of deliveries that we're accepting here at the office as it relates to supplies. We are also sending out a letter to all of our wholesale dealers regarding potential delays in fuel deliveries and other delivery interruptions. We just want to be proactive and communicate those things in the event they happen. We have restricted all work-related travel until further notice. And we certainly have asked our employees if they still intend to travel, predominantly internationally, but even if they intend to travel elsewhere, to give us a heads up so that we can be aware of that. Some additional considerations that we've talked about but have not necessarily landed on are requesting limit increases of credit card transactions that require a signature, so that we can reduce the amount of touch points on that PIN at our card readers. So we are looking into that. We're also looking into Zoom and Skype for Business capabilities to enhance the work from home communications that we will have to do now. We have typically not operated where we have many employees working from home or working remotely, so this is a challenge that we're facing, and we want to see what capabilities can assist us with that. We've also considered suspending refills on fountain and coffee in our stores for both our customers and team members. And we've also considered potentially going card only. We want to reduce the amount of contact with cash. So I think, we certainly hit a lot of ground this morning. We were in a meeting for about 3+ hours this morning. This is still fluid, and we're still trying to make the best decisions for our business. But one of the pieces that we landed on at the end of our meeting is that it's just very important that as it relates to communication with employees about what we are doing and how this will transpire, we need to have one point of contact for any questions or concerns and one voice that's communicating out there. We want to try to reduce the territory manager saying one thing and, then the director of retail saying something else, and then here comes HR saying something different. We really want to make sure that we have one voice that's communicating one consistent message. And we're doing that by email. We're doing that by text. We have a program called Dialogue Health, where we can blast out text messages to certain groups of individuals or all of our employees at once. So we're doing our best to make sure that we're communicating effectively.
Thank you, Albie. For the audience, I've gotten some questions about will these documents be made available? The answer is yes. We did send them out prior, but if you registered later or whatnot, may not have received them. But we will get everything that's been shared here to everybody as well. A couple questions, Albie. One that came up from the audience is, what will be the impact of these decisions on federally mandated sick leave and expanded FMLA, assuming the current bill in the Senate passes? I may not be current on the current bill in the Senate, but do you have any insight there?
Well, in Georgia, we operate in Georgia and South Carolina. We do not have state mandated sick leave, so that is not something that we're having to consider at this time. But we are staying close to the bill that hopefully will help reimburse companies like ourselves with some of the extended payroll expense. And I believe hopefully a decision will be made on that today.
Sounds good. And another question that came up either for Douglas or for Clipper: has anybody done anything as it relates to interviewing and hiring of people?
Can you expand on that?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I mean, in terms of your interview process to ultimately hire somebody, have you that come up as an issue yet? Have you done anything different from your normal practices?
Well, this is Albie from Clipper. I think I can say safely that hiring has slowed at the store as of recently, just probably based on attention being directed elsewhere. I know here at the support center, any interviews that need to be conducted are being conducted via phone or potentially Skype or FaceTime. So we're just adjusting as necessary.
Jed, this is Steve. Along that same line, I actually even had an interview scheduled for tomorrow, which went from face-to-face to a teleconference. So, we're making those kind of adjustments, but we continue to interview.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're also still interviewing. I think they had an interview in person today. Up here where we're located, it's not in our area yet, so I don't think that has been a big issue, but we're kind of the same as Clipper has been. We're very lucky to not have as many interviews planned right now because our stores are pretty well stocked, and we really hope they stay that way. But that's a really good consideration that we need to bring up for our team.
Another question that came up, has anybody done anything different? You may have alluded to it, but if somebody in your store tests positive for the virus, what's the policy as it relates to that store, or even in the office where you work, or satellite office, or anything around that?
So this is Albie from Clipper again. Our procedure is when and if we have a positive and confirmed diagnosis, we will immediately assess well, first and foremost, if that employee isn't already quarantined, which they should be, we would make sure that they are quarantined for a minimum of 14 days. If at that time we would quickly assess who all that employee has been in close contact with, close contact being within 6 feet. That's challenging, of course, when you think about an employee at a store level that might have come in contact with other employees and, of course, other customers as well. So in terms of the employees, we would need to notify the employees that there was a potential exposure to them of this virus, and because of that, we would recommend that them speak to a medical professional, but we will also quarantine them at home for a minimum of 14 days. And my understanding is that is the recommendation from the CDC. So we want to make sure to follow that, and understand also that there are some cases where a medical professional might extend that quarantine for one reason or another. Perhaps they have underlying health conditions that's worsening the virus, and we want to cooperate with those medical professionals as closely as possible. Then, of course, we have to worry about making sure that the store is cleaned and sanitized. It should already be cleaned and sanitized, but of course we want to do another once over. So we might need to either close operations temporarily or reduce hours in that particular location so we can get our contracted cleaning service out to do enhanced cleaning in that location. And also consideration to posting something, if we feel absolutely necessary, posting something on our doors while we're closed to advise customers.
Yeah, thank you very much. I know we have a local Starbucks just down the street from our home that my wife frequents quite a bit, and they had one of their employees test positive just a few days ago. So they did similar to what you've been saying, Albie, and shut down the store for enhanced cleaning for 2 days. And then, of course, that person is in quarantine, and then all the associates that were working with that person on a shift in the near future have been in quarantine now for 14 days, but they're back up operating again with the other staff that they have. So, Alyssa, Douglas, any other big picture items that you'd like to communicate to people that we may not have covered so far?
Well, Albie actually hit on a topic that I meant to cover and zoomed right past, but using Zoom call meetings and like Skype and things like that when it comes to working from home, and then further making sure that all of the supervisors have a plan, like ready to go for in case there is an outbreak and people are quarantined, so that it's not a panic on how to get operations working, but it's more of a supervisors have a plan, they're ready to go and ready to connect with their employees using Zoom from home to make sure that production is still going, operations, and those employees aren't just at home having a vacation. So things like that are really good things to consider getting familiar with now, rather than waiting until it's actually time to use them and having that small section of nothing's getting done because you're just trying to get in and try and figure out how to continue production. And then I guess just, again, making sure that we are communicating with employees, not underestimating or overestimating the situation and circumstances, but again, making sure we're prepared and tracking, communicating to the organization, making sure we're spreading the awareness but not panic. Those are just my main things and what I'm personally trying to do for my company.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jed, unfortunately, our nation's kind of underinvested in biosecurity and digital security. So we're experiencing one right now, so we need to plan for the other. In the times of the biological crisis, we must think from kind of the point of view of the attackers. Weakness and inattention will leave us vulnerable to digital attacks. For instance, yesterday, the U.S. Health and Human Services Department suffered a cyber attack on its computer systems. So we can't, we got to continue to be vigilant, particularly those that are working from home, may not have necessarily the same securities and protocols that we do here at the office.
I think that cybersecurity threat is very real, and the bad guys are going to use this as a great time to try to wreak havoc as well and take advantage of the situation. So the extra diligence as it relates to cybersecurity is going to be needed. From the Clipper side, anything further to add?
I got one more note I just wanted to add in there. I know for our company, we offer teledoc through our insurance, and I know there's several companies out there that use teledoc or spouses that might, but teledoc is a great source to use in order to call and let them know on symptoms. The big thing right now is to call, whether it's teledoc or your physical, your health physician or an ER, but call ahead of time. They're starting to set up locations to actually be tested. But if you just strictly get in your car and go to an ER or urgent care or anything like that, you could be exposing people that are already there with the lower immune system. So call those different numbers and see if you can't, one, talk through symptoms, and two, find out where to go for testing.
Very good.
Jed, I'd like to just follow up with a couple of things here from the Clipper perspective. First and foremost, it's been our pleasure to share some of our experiences. This has been a fast-paced process and will continue to be so, and I know we're going to have to continue to find ways to adapt the way we operate as we proceed. But I would like to encourage our family of study group folks to maybe consider some interchanges, whether that's group to group or on a larger basis, just voluntarily, maybe an additional interchange, because we've been happy to provide information today, but we have an awful lot of questions. We'd love to hear from some of the other folks in study group, and would certainly encourage that y'all consider that from a management perspective.
Absolutely. I think this is the time when we're in crises like these that the study group can be of its most value to members. And I think one suggestion was individual groups, us setting up conference calls where we can more readily exchange ideas and how we're all evolving to this situation.
And Jed, this is Albie. Just one last thing on my side. I don't remember hearing this earlier. If I did, I apologize. For those companies that have an EAP, an employee assistance program, either through their insurance provider or external company, this would be a really great time to arm your managers out there with the flyers associated with that EAP. There are employees out there that are just bewildered and confused and frightened, and they need some support, whether it be legal support, financial support, childcare assistance, whatever that might be. So I would encourage you, if you do have an EAP, to ramp up communications around that program.
Mm-hmm. And one person said, this is just a comment from the audience as it relates to IT. They said if people have Microsoft Office 365 licenses, they may have team capability built in that could help with home and person-to-person communication. So you may not have to go out to a third party and get anything if you already have Microsoft Office 365 licenses that could allow you to more virtually connect. So something to keep in mind. I know there's lots of questions. We can't answer everything here. We've already gone a little bit over time, but I do want to turn briefly to Eric Bolduc at Holmes Murphy. One question that's come up is, do I have any insurance today that may help me out in this situation that I'm in? So, Eric, I turn the floor to you quickly to help answer that question.
It's a great question, and it's a difficult one to answer. Historically, insurance contracts have been very restrictive when it comes to virus, bacteria, mold, things of that nature. As it's been mentioned several times on this call, it's a very fluid situation. We saw with President Trump's remarks last week some changes made by the government on the health insurance side, eliminating co-pays and things like that. We could see some impacts that would open up some policies. I think where we've really been looking at this is from the standard of measuring risk, avoid, reduce, and transfer. A lot of the discussion today has been around companies avoiding and reducing the exposure for their specific businesses. Quite frankly, that's where a lot of our effort as a specialist within this space, we've been working with companies on battle plans, strategies, communication, housekeeping, things of those items. Now we're starting to get where people have their arms around those areas on the transfer side. And I would tell the group where we're seeing most of the discussion is primarily around business interruption loss, supply chain, other things that could impact their businesses. Civil authority, where a government shuts down a community that closes your convenience store or closes your operation. The other would be workers' compensation. And if my worker contracts the virus, how do we really discern when, where that worker contracted that? So again, the burden of proof, not only on the workers' compensation side, but the general liability side gets very murky and difficult to discern. So again, things could change within the government. There could be ways to tag some of these claims that may result from this virus, and that's where our claims management people will be actively looking at these situations as this evolves and then communicating with the insurance carrier on those specific items.
All right, thank you, Eric. Well, I think it's time to wrap up here, everybody. We will get you the information if you didn't receive it already on these various handouts that everybody has provided. And we've recorded this webinar, so we will make that available to you. So if you'd like to share that recording with a team member or another company, feel free to do so. That information will be going out. I just want to give a big thank you, and we can do a virtual round of applause, even though we can't hear you, for our panelists here. We appreciate the folks at Douglas, the folks at Clipper, and Pitts, and even Eric Bolduc for taking of their time, sharing their learnings as they're all going through the same thing that we are. And I think Steve makes a good suggestion of let's continue to use the study group to learn and best respond to this situation together. In the meantime, stay healthy, everybody. Any questions, feel free to shoot them our way, and we'll do our best to get you answers as we can. Thank you, and have a good day. Goodbye.